Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing another card review, taking a look at some of the new stuff that was released last night. Typically, it ends up coming out like super late in the evening, and that's because of the time difference when stuff gets leaked in the OCG in Japan and overseas. So I didn't get a video out last night, and I'm sure a few people have already seen these, but I am super excited. We did a video a couple weeks ago talking about some of the Elba cards from the structure deck, and this is basically the rest of them as far as I'm aware. But I also do want to cover the one Marincess card that was announced yesterday, just because, again, I'm not going to make a single video just for that one card. So we're going to take a look at that stuff today, give our thoughts on it, and see whether or not the Elba stuff is really shaping up. We got the first wave of support was really solid, and it gave the deck a way to function sort of on its own, but also gave it some like extra combo pieces for other decks like Tri-Brigade and Despia. So let's see what we got with the new ones here. And I do just want to ask you guys, if you do enjoy the content, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos, and let's get to it. So Marincess Coral Triangle is the first new card that was announced yesterday, and it's 2 or more Marincess monsters. You can send 1 water monster from your hand to the graveyard, add 1 Marincess trap from your deck to your hand. So this is a good way to search Marincess Wave, which is really solid because that's probably one of their stronger tools in terms of being effect negation, so that's good to see. You can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon any number of water link monsters from your graveyard whose combined ratings equal exactly 3. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. Also, you cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate either of these cards' effects except water monsters. So I don't think the water restriction is too big of a deal. Pretty much Marincess is water heavy. A lot of the cards they play are water reliant, and I don't think it's going to be that much of a drawback. This is really solid, though, I think because of the ability to search the traps and to get quicker access to Wave and even a few of the other more, you know, flexible, not so commonly played, but usable in certain scenarios, traps they have access to. I'm not a Marincess player, so if you guys really like this, let me know if you think it's good, but I definitely think it's more of a positive than a negative for the deck. Now, moving into the Elba stuff, it seems like one of the toughest things about that is because Elba is intertwined with so many archetypes, they've had to strike a balance between being able to make such that the cards are not too powerful that they're like super broken just as a whole unit, but also not bad enough that, you know, you're going to say, well, I'd rather just play Tri-Brigade and use the Elba cards in that, or I'd rather just play Despia, so on and so forth. If the goal is to make it so that the Elba deck can function at least as a standalone deck, you really need to make sure that there's cards that combo well enough to do that. I don't think any of these cards are in the position where like you can play that deck without utilizing some of the other engines, but I think that's kind of the design and really the point behind it. So obviously Elba being a spell speed 2 Super Poly, or a regular Super Poly that, you know, can be responded to, does take him down a few pegs, but it is a cool card, and it does still have a neat removal effect. So let's take a look at these, starting off with Branded Blade. This is a normal trap, and it's obviously a branded card, so it is searchable by a lot of things, including Despia, Tragedy, I believe, and Aluber. So nice to see that kind of continuity. But banish any number of branded spells or traps from your graveyard, special summon that many Ice Blade tokens, Dragon, Dark, level 8, attack 2500, defense 2000. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one of your banished Fallen of Elbaz or monsters that specifically list that card in their text. Add it to your hand. You can only use one of these effects per turn and only once that turn. So House of Champs pointed this out last night in his video too, how this doesn't seem to have any restrictions unless there was some kind of an error translation. This is just putting a bunch of powerful tokens on the board, not really requiring that you do anything with them. You don't have to summon them in defense. I mean, there might be scenarios where you can push for game just utilizing this, especially with the recyclability that some of the branded spell or traps have. But I do think it's neat. It's a little slow, obviously, just given the fact that it's a trap in the metagame, especially with the way this deck wants to play most of the time. Having to wait a turn to use it might be problematic, but it does have that second effect going for it, which gives you the recursion and also gives you an alternate use for it. So if you draw it and you have to go first and you can't necessarily make use of it, you could discard it for Elbaz and then banish it to maybe add something back. I do like it a lot. I can't really say too much without having a chance to actually playtest where I would place it in terms of usability, but it's certainly a neat card with some potential and then a solid piece of support for the branded archetype as a whole. Branded Condemnation is the other one. This is a counter trap, which means it's inherently going to be compared to things like Solemn Strike and Solemn Judgment in terms of usability. But if it's better than those, great. If it's not, unfortunately, it's probably not going to see much play. But let's see what we got. When a spell or trap or monster effect is activated that includes an effect that special summons a monster or monsters, return a fusion monster or monsters that lists Fallen of Elbaz as material to the extra deck. 1 you control or 2 from your grave. Okay, so that's why it says that. So you either shuffle 2 from grave or 1 you control back into the extra deck to negate that summon and destroy that card. But it looks like it only negates card effects that special summon. It doesn't negate inherent summon, so it's weaker than Strike in that regard, but decent-ish in the sense that it's searchable, I suppose. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one branded spell or trap in your graveyard except branded condemnation, add it to your hand, and it does have that hard once per turn for both effects. You cannot use both effects in the same turn. So, neat in terms of the recursion. I would argue that Despia Tragedy does this better in terms of recurring the spells and traps, so I don't know how much I really think this card is going to see play, but perhaps at some point people will find a use for it. I can't comment on it too much right now. I know I said that earlier, and it seems like a bit of a cop-out, but we don't really know what the Elbaz deck as a whole is going to look like, and just based on the surface, I think it's a cool card, but I don't think it's going to be anything competitively viable for them. Now, Rubellion the Divine Flame Dragon, first of all, the artwork is absolutely sick. Second of all, it's a generic dark fusion for Elbaz, meaning it's basically Elbaz and a dark monster, which is great because dark is probably the most commonly played attribute, so it's definitely one of those scenarios where you'll be able to utilize this pretty frequently. If this card is Fusion Summoned, you can discard one card, Fusion Summon one level 8 or lower Fusion monster from your extra deck except a card with this card's name by shuffling materials listed on it into the deck from among your cards on the field, in your graveyard, and or your face-up banished cards. But for the rest of this turn, this card cannot attack. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Fusion monsters. So, this is really good for two reasons. One, it does combo incredibly well with Albion the Branded Dragon from Lightning Overdrive. When this card is Fusion Summoned, and this is Elbaz with a Light Monster, you can then Fusion Summon by banishing materials from your hand, field, and or grave. So, being able to summon Rubellion and then summon Albion and get a couple fusion summons, sort of stack the board out, is a really neat play, and it doesn't cost you any additional resources to do so, which is awesome. I like the card a lot. Being able to use Elbaz to out a dark monster or a light monster gives you some more flexibility with that effect, and this card just looks amazing on top of it. A shame it doesn't have any kind of a graveyard effect like some of the other fusions do, but I sort of get it because it does a lot on its own, and it does sort of give you resource recovery by being able to shuffle some of your cards from grave or face-up banished back into the deck. So, really like this card. I definitely think it's something to keep an eye on, and anything that's utilizing that as an engine should be able to get some serious use out of this. I talked about Albion already. I think Albion just gets better with this new support, especially due to the fact that you can search the branded spells or traps directly. If you don't have Albion already, I would recommend picking one up sooner rather than later. We don't know when the structure deck is going to come out, but I do expect this card's price to spike a bit. It's likely it would be in the deck, but I'm not sure exactly how many of the fusions they're going to include, so just something to keep an eye on there. And mirrorg the Iceblade Dragon, this one I have read. This card is actually wild, so it's Fallen of Elbaz and then a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster. You can only control one monster with this card's name. Once per turn, quick effect, you can send a Fusion monster that lists Fallen of Elbaz as material from your extra deck to the graveyard. Banish one monster on the field, but this effect cannot be used again next turn. So, if you use this during your opponent's turn, you can't use it on yours, and vice versa. This is non-targeting removal. This is actually an insanely good card, and being able to out things like Dragoon is something that really shouldn't be slept on. It does get over other boss monsters as well, and if it's Fusion Summon and is removed from the field at all by an opponent's card, you can activate this effect during the end phase, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. So that includes if they were to like tribute it with a kaiju, if they were to like destroy it with something. There are very few ways to get over this card for the opponent without taking some form of damage in the process in terms of like to their board and to their resources, and that's kind of cool, but also kind of wild. Like, this is a really, really powerful card, and I definitely think it's something people will start to play. I don't know where. I don't know whether or not you'll just see Elbaz splashed into random things as a tech, as a way to make this. Time remains to be seen on that, and I look forward to being able to playtest these pretty soon, but this is a huge hit for me in terms of cards that are just going to make an impact in some capacity. I look forward to seeing what the OCG builds sort of look like and whether or not this catches on. But overall, I would say the structure deck looks like it's going to be great. We know for sure we're getting it, and there are some cards in it that are genuinely good. So I'm excited. I think this lore is awesome. The fact that they've brought all these archetypes together. I love the Trishula inspiration on this card, at least a little. And obviously it has some, you know, combination with the Ice Jade stuff in terms of the lore. So this is a big thumbs up for me on the Elbaz support overall. Let me know what you guys think. Like the video, comment if you enjoy the material, and subscribe for more videos. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.